we're going to study Tractate Sotah, page 29. We start page 28b, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. We study in the previous daf the disputation between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael. While Rabbi Akiva said that when it's come to Sotah, prohibition, there are 3 entities involved, which is the husband, Baal, Boel, the one who have relation with her, and also the invalidity for her to eat from the truma. Rabbi Ishmael disputed Rabbi Akiva, and he held that you can derive it from Kal Vachomer. You don't need a straight source of pasuk. Rabbi Ishmael, Amar Rabbi Akiva, truma umehadar leihu kehuna. So Rabbi Ishmael derived the whole concept of nitme'ah, that she is defiled, the sotah. It means that you do not need a separate pasuk to teach us that she is prohibited to marry a kohen, because the Rabbi Akiva notion is not even in psulei kuna, is not involved in anything that it's to do with psilut, of the disqualification of a priesthood. And Rabbi Ishmael Vetu, and there's another question you can ask Rabbi Akiva, that he's not dealing with this braita of disqualification of sotah to kehuna. So the question is, kehuna menale, how does he derive from any pasuk that the sotah prohibited to marry a kohen if the husband is no longer among the living? So the answer, and they said, V'chi teima, and if you tell me, kehuna, that the prohibition against marrying into kehuna, into priesthood, צריך hakra, you do not need a pasuk. 29, share asaba, safek zona kezona, because you have already a statement in the Torah that when you have a woman that engage in cohabitation with a man forbidden to her by the Torah, that's called the zonah, is though is constantly a zonah. So since Sotah is now in a framework of prohibition to a relation with her husband after the hisatut, after the seclusion, even we do not have a witnesses that she committed adultery, so therefore it will be prohibited for her to marry a kohen, just like a regular zonah. Then they, when it's come to truma, lo tibai ekra, you don't need a special pasuk. Share asaba safek zonah kesonah. He treated this uncertain zonah the same as zonah. So the truth is, one of the heavy questions we have here in American Jewry is issues like that. Is one of the responsa the late Moshe P had was a woman that Baal Tshuva. So what happened? She married by reconstructionist or reform. Anyway, she divorced, and they told her that, you know, the paper, the civil, whatever it is, and the little paper they gave her is sufficient for her to go and marry. And she married a fellow, and she have long-term relationships and children with a second guy. And now she and her husband became balei tshuva. So now it's a very painful issue, because what we studied before, keshem shasura la ba'ala asura la boel, the same way as she prohibited to her husband, she is prohibited to the other guy, since she did not receive a formal orthodoxy get from the husband, the original one. So the question, how you treat it? You treat it, is it as a boel? It's the first, the second, especially those who live in chaye hefker, or you call it choser yediah, you call it tinok shenishba, you talk to someone who's total not familiar with halachot. So the Rashba tried to bring a proof from David HaMelech. They said about King David a famous story. One of them is Michal bat Shaul, Michal the daughter of Shaul. So she married King David. But it happens that Shaul took her and he gave her to Palti ben Laish. It's a name in the Tanakh. Either you said that the Sanhedrin imposed it, or you said that Melech Shaul did it, and King David took her back. How? You may say, Keshem she'asura laba'al asura laboel. So the answer is, it was a matter of knowing. King David knew that King Saul did it beshogeg, unwittingly, and therefore she followed the hora'at Ava Sanhedrin, but it's all beshogeg, it was unintentional. So there are those who hold this notion, like Rav Feinstein, say that in a hindsight, so Rabbi Akiva Rabba Kerektive, according to Rabbi Akiva, when it's come to rendering ritual impurity, you have 4 sources of nitme'ah, chad leba'al, v'chad leboel, v'chad lekuna, v'chad letruma. One husband, one boel, one have relation with her, one to teach us that she prohibited to marry a kohen, and the 4th one is the prohibition against eating from the truma. Rabbi Ishmael, that he's not holding the vav yetera, the superfluous, the prefix vav, to be used as a drasha. Tlat re'ektivi, you have 3, chad leba'al, v'chad levoel, v'chad letruma. V'kunat ye b'chal v'chomer, you learn truma in a matter of kal v'chomer. So there's a book called Chikrei Lev. Chikrei Lev is bringing a Rambam. So the idea is, in the Rambam said, if it was kinui and stira, if it was a warning and seclusion, in general what we said that ed echad ne'eman. If you have just one witness, it's sufficient to accept. So it's not only if he said, okay, she is secluded herself in so and so, so that's the regular situation, but even if he comes, one witness, and said that she was forced to that relation, is still ne'eman. And the question is why? You don't have raglaim ladavar, you don't have any source. It's honest, it's not beratzon, it's not in her wishes. So how come you tell me that ed echad ne'eman, that one witness is trustworthy? We don't have raglaim ladavar, we don't have a source. So again, if you go by the Tosfot say the whole idea of Safek Sotah is only if you have raglaim ladavar. But in general, this is the long ma'alach of Chikrei Lev based on the Rambam. Anyway, Rabbi Ishmael Madi צריך קרא לתרומה וכהונה עתיה בקל וחומר. דילמה כי צריך לתרומה ותרומה שריה. המהלך מסתבר דומה דבעל ובועל. מה בעל ובועל מחיים? אף תרומה מחיים. The same way that בעל and boel is, you speak about them that during the lifetime of the husband, so the prohibition against partaking of truma applies only also during the lifetime of the husband, to the exclusion of her prohibition against marrying into the priesthood, which is relevant only after the death of the husband. So the person is that if the husband will divorce her, it will be prohibited for her to marry a kohen anyway. Rabbi Akiva. So that's the מהלך. אמר לו, רבי ישמעאל said, מסתבר דומה לבעל ובועל. מה בעל ובועל מחיים, אף תרומה נמי מחיים, נבוא כהונה לאחר מיתה. Fine. So now they go to the avenue of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, that he needs a special pasuk for כהונה. דומיה דבעל ובועל lately. So he doesn't have the husband and the boel, and therefore he requires 2 separate derivations. One for תרומה and one for the כהונה. והנה מאיתלי מילתא דעתי בקל וחומר טרח וכתב לקרא. Something you can learn with Kal Vachomer. So the verse nevertheless takes the trouble to write explicitly. So therefore, although it's unnecessary, 2 verses are stated, one for Tumah and one for the priesthood. So what we learned in the previous daf, we learned if it's come to the Rishut HaYachid, so we learn Safek Tumah B'Rishut HaYachid, if you have a question of rendering ritual impurity of defilement on Sotah, so it's only in something, ודבר שיש בו להישאר, there's something that אמר רב גידל אמר רב, דבר שיש בו דל להישאל ונודע להישאל מה אין אף כמינה. So when you have an entity that has awareness in order to be asked, and an entity that's lack of awareness in order to be asked, so in cases of uncertain ritual impurity, והבשר שיגע בכל טמא לא יאכל, ודאי טמא הוא דלא יאכל, הספק טמא וספק טהור יאכל, עם הסיפה. והבשר כל טהור יאכל בשר, ודאי טהור הוא דיאכל בשר. הספק טמא וספק טהור לא יאכל. אליו שמע מינה, כאן שיש בו דעת להישאל, כאן שאין בו דעת להישאל. So obviously here you have a final decision that if you have a lack of awareness in order to be asked, so where in the uncertain case of ritual impurity it impure. וצריך. דרב גידלה אמר רב וצריך למי גמרא מסוטה, we need both לימודים. דימי דרב הווה אמינה בין ברשות היחיד בין ברשות רבים, regardless of the public or private section, because the pasuk, the verse did not differentiate between the domain. צריך למי גמרא מסוטה. Why? Because it's specifically in private domain, which is the place of seclusion. So therefore you have ספק טמא, but not in the public domain. ואם מסוטה הווה אמינה עדיקה דעת נוגע ומגיע, צריכה. So you have the two לימודים. Because if you have a safek, if they touch a creeping animal and it's a ritual impure, so you don't need a da'at. Why? Because the safek tameh is applied to a private domain. So that day, yes, we said, Rabbi Akiva teaches us that when it's come to earthware, so we talk about kikar sheni, the second level of the ritual impurity, that carry purity to the third one. So if Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai doesn't have a source from the Torah that teaches that Truma is the third level of Tuma, so what's the reason that Rabban Yonatan ben Zakkai himself maintained that he's impure? Omar Rav Yehuda amar Rav, מן התורה אין לו, מדין קל וחומר יש לו. If you use the Torah שבכתב, you don't have a source. But if you need the קל וחומר, you can have the third תרומה פסולה. מה הדבול יום שמותר בחולין פסול בתרומה? כיכר שני שפסול בחולין, יודעים שיעשה שלישי בתרומה. Which means תרומה, ritually impure, to be a third one. So the Gemara challenges, איקרא נפרח, מה לדבול יום שכן אבא תרומה, and the כיכר is only sheni, teiti, so therefore you derive the סלחה 29b, מיטבול יום דשרץ, for one who immerse himself that day, which is, that was not the avatuma for impurity, so through the contact with the creeping animal, and is even though it's not qualified to truma when it touched. So here you have this, the Maharsha explained that here you see, because you cannot have avatuma, there's a different category, different level. ומה לדבול יום דשרת שכן במינו אבטומאה? So even someone who attached the creeping animal, it's not avatuma, but adam or kelim, a person or vessels, that's much more than the food, because adam and kelim, a person and vessel, can be avatuma versus food. Avatuma in general is anything that can attach to a person or the vessels, and anything that is the source of ritual impurity, like creeping animal, dead body, etc., that can contaminate it or transfer ritual impurity to people and to vessels. So kli cheres yochiach. So here you have the earthenware vessel can be proved that the fact that there is primary source of impurity within its type is not a relevant factor. An earthenware vessel can never become a primary source of impurity, and nevertheless, if it is impure, is disqualified truma from contact. So the truth is, the Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Kotler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, in Lakewood, he explained to us in his writings that when it's come to kli cheres, to earthware, there are different levels, there are different gradations, different madregot. He speaks about one level that you just make a little hole, versus sometimes you need to go higher. You know, לפעמים מספיק חור קטן, sometimes it's just a little hole, can machshir it. You don't need always in every case to break it. That's the view of Rabbi Kotler. But anyway, מה לכלי חרס שכן מטמא באווירו, which means that when it's earthware, they have a special dinim, that even is a creeping animal that hanging from inside, even without attachment, just the airspace in between is already carry contamination of ritual impurity. טבול יום מוכיח וחוזר עדים, לא ראי זה קרי זה ולא ראי זה קרי זה. הצד השווה שבהן, שמותרים בחולין ופוסלים את התרומה. The mechanism by all of them, that when it's come to disqualification, which means whether impure even is a non-sacred, should be disqualified תרומה, לפוסל בתרומה, לפוסל בחולין, לפוסל בתרומה. So that's the soul of Yochanan ben Zakkai, that the second can make the third in תרומה. ודור אחר פריך, מה להצד השווה שבהם, שכן יש בהם צד חמור, that each of them have a stringent aspect that does not exist in other impure items. So why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai not accepted? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai tzad chamur lo parich. So he basically did not refute something that is based on two sources because both sources have a stringent aspect. So since each one of the sources, stringency is not shared by the other. So the Kotzker Rebbe, the great Hasidic sect Kotzk, have a very sharp mind Rebbe. So the Kotzker Rebbe said, what's the reason that we differentiate between clay cheres, between earthenware and other vessels? Why by the Torah law, clay cheres and tahara, you cannot purify them, like think about Pesach discussion, etc. Why? So he said, you know what's the difference? When it's come to chashivut, the importance, you have a vessel that's made out of gold, out of silver, they have values, it carries importance. Versus someone is kli cheres, you don't have an importance, because how you make it, you take your water, you take some dust, you take some earth, you combine it. The only idea is machzik, you hold something with that, and that's carry the chashivut. So the only idea of tum'ah, of ritual impurity, it's only mibefnim, from inside the vessel, not the vessel by itself, the aviro. So therefore you cannot go and toivel that in a mikveh, because if you do that, you motzi'o me'avayato, you're taking out of his basic essence. So therefore, taharato ishvirato, to purify this, you need to break it. But again, as we said, that there are different madrigot, a different level, not always you go by that. As Rav Kotler said, sometimes just making a hole, even a small one, is sufficient. So each case, one should ask a prominent posek.
Shula